This is your Monday Night Raw review on the WWE podcast, and we're going to review Monday Night Raw that aired September 6th, 2021. We're going to cover everything that happened, including roll-ups everywhere, Randy Orton hitting another RKO on Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley and Randy Orton are official for Extreme Rules, and Alexa Bliss steps up to Charlotte. Let's get everything going right after this. I'm sure you've noticed the buzz happening around cryptocurrency. I'm sure some of you are excited about the crypto space, but I'm really excited for the sale that is going on at Crypty.co. Crypty is a crypto-focused website that sells the comfiest hoodies and t-shirts. They support over 20 different cryptos that also have their own hats, stickers, and mugs. Not to mention the best part, they are now accepting cryptocurrency as payment. Head over to Crypty.co and check out their deal. Again, that's Crypty.co, CRYPTEE.co.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
All righty, welcome to the WWE podcast for your Monday Night Raw review here on Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. Thank you so much for joining me here. We've got a lot to get to today, certainly with the Monday Night Raw and its flaws continue to be flaws, but I think that there are strengths in the show, and we will get to that as well. And for the first time in a long time, I got to say, that's the most tag team wrestling I've seen on a single show, maybe ever, at least in my brain right now. I cannot come up with a single other show in which tag team wrestling was dominant. And, you know, hey, I gotta give it to them, because tag team wrestling has been just a filler for so many years that, my God, they dedicated nearly an entire show to it. So we're going to talk about that, and obviously the end, which saw Randy Orton hit an RKO on Bobby Lashley. We now know Bobby Lashley's opponent for Extreme Rules, which then tells you that we know what's going to happen in Saudi Arabia at Crown Jewel in October. Yep, you guessed it. Goldberg is coming for Bobby Lashley in October. It's not official, but let's be honest, it's happening at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia can have that match. They can keep it, they can lock it away, and they can make it part of their national history, because I have no interest in that at all. And we'll get to that, obviously, when it happens in a month or so and it's announced. But right now, we're looking towards Extreme Rules, which is coming to us in 3 weeks. I mean, 3 weeks, and boom, it's going to be here as pay-per-views continue to rocket by and life continues to rocket by. We've got 3 weeks of the television to get through. None bigger, of course, than this Friday night SmackDown in Madison Square Garden. It's going to be a big show, and they have made it known as such. So obviously in our SmackDown review with Michael Ritter, he'll cover that. I'll cover that on the weekend review. But first, I'd like to invite you, if you're tired of the ads and just want an easy experience, you don't want to have to click through and scrub through to miss the ads or hit that forward button, that skip button. There's an easy way to get rid of those ads, and that's clicking on the ad-free button on Apple Podcasts. It's there, and you can get ad-free listening for all of the shows that we do, as well as on Patreon. That's also ad-free for every show that we do, so not a bad deal there if you just want those ads gone, right? So let's jump into Monday Night Raw. Let's talk. What's on your mind, guys? Obviously, that's a rhetorical question, because let's talk about what really just pops into my head first. That's Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, believe it or not, because they were, I think, the match of the night. These two always put on such good matches. They're obviously really good friends in real life. They've got very similar styles in that they're very physical with one another. They don't pull their punches. Drew McIntyre and Sheamus has for whatever reason, he's a glutton for punishment, because he takes that Claymore as if he's actually being kicked in the face. They always do slow-mos. And watching that Claymore connect with Sheamus's face is so unnerving. It's so, I mean, I give the guy credit, but I also fear for his actual health. I mean, you can't fake something like that with the Claymore, the way that Sheamus takes it. So I credit the guy, but I'm also a little bit afraid for him. So, but outside of that, I mean, they had a really good match, as they seemingly always do. And it came out with Sheamus getting the victory. How? Oh, right. The roll-up. So while this was the best match, I think, of the night, roll-up, roll-ups. Roll-ups everywhere. You get a roll-up, and you get a roll-up, and you get a roll-up. And I do mention this every week, but this took roll-ups to another level. And I don't just mean Sheamus and Drew. We'll get to New Day in just a couple minutes, because I've just about had it with the New Day on all levels. Every conceivable way which you could look at the New Day, I have zero interest in seeing them continue as New Day. But we'll get to that in a minute. I want to talk about Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. Or I'm sorry, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. I, again, respect both of these guys, but the right person won here. Sheamus had to win this. Why? You have a babyface United States champion, one that is on the rise right now. You don't want to have babyface versus babyface, in which Drew has to lose again clean to Damian Priest. You don't want that to be the case. So that kind of leaves you with the question of, well, where the hell is Drew McIntyre headed? Who is his next opponent? You know, Drew was very in, I guess, kind of a holding pattern is really the way I want to say it. He's in a holding pattern, of which really I think the entire Raw creative is in a holding pattern. Raw is just chomping at the bit to get to this draft, dying to get to this draft. And from all reports, it looks like it's going to take place next month. And they are dying to, whereas SmackDown is just kind of hoarding themselves in the corner with their hands over their head saying, no, stay away, you stay over there, right? SmackDown is so well done. They don't want to be touched, right? SmackDown, it's like, hey, we've got everything we need. You stay in your corner, I'll stay in this corner. Obviously, things are going to be shook up, and I think Drew will benefit from that big time. With a lot of the Raw roster as well, that is just dying to shake things up. Even if they stay on Raw, perhaps they just get new talent from SmackDown to work with. There's going to be a whole lot of swapping. I mean, it's going to be fun. You know, what about Undertaker? Randy Orton working with Roman Reigns, right? Think about that. Drew McIntyre working with Roman Reigns. So things could get very interesting very quickly at the draft. And I think it's a holding pattern where Raw is just crawling to the finish and SmackDown is thriving, saying, don't touch me. You know, cooties, leave me alone. So, but let's talk a little bit about, as I said before, you know, look, roll-ups everywhere, and none more offensive than tonight. This may have been, in addition to the most tag team wrestling focused show I've seen from WWE in my lifetime, I got to say, this also was the most offensive when it comes to roll-ups being used. And roll-ups are used. You guys hear me talk about this every single week. Roll-ups are used way too much. And they're used at least once, twice a show. And that's bad enough. But last night on Monday Night Raw, we had, let's count it, the roll-up from Sheamus to Drew. We had the New Day in their just epic roll-up fest, starting with the Viking Raiders. This is really where things just, I mean, you could see it coming. We had the Viking Raiders start the match. Kofi Kingston hit Eric with Trouble in Paradise. And then, of course, we got New Day keeping it rolling against the team of Jinder and Veer and Shanky, who was on the outside, which, again, both of them roll up, bringing out Lucha House Party, roll up. That brings out Mason T-Bar, roll up. 3 roll-ups in a single match. That's 4 for the night. And then, of course, we saw what happened with the attack from Mason T-Bar, who really were elevated in a loss here. They really, I think, made a name for themselves, at least. And that's not saying a whole lot considering how low the bar is for these two, but at least they made an impact. Notice I didn't say the word statement because other words exist other than statement or message. They made an impact. They really made a name for themselves last night in a way that they never have, and that at least shows the brutality. The crowd was actually booing them. So there was some emotion there. That's good. You know, emotion and Mason T-Bar typically are not words I say in the same sentence, but it did make you at least go, oh, okay, wow, these two actually have something beyond just putting random paint on their face, not knowing who they are, what they stand for, and they're just thrown together as a random wrestling team that has some kind of odd gimmick that we don't know what it is. And that's essentially what they are. They're just obvious. They're the leftover corpse of Retribution. The just beloved Retribution. So again, back to the task at hand here. We get 3 roll-ups in a single match from Xavier Woods of the New Day, and then things go awry as AJ Styles and Omos end up defeating them finally, and we get Bobby Lashley and MVP versus AJ Styles and Omos. This ends, of course, with Bobby Lashley and MVP earning the victory here, which sets up a tag team title match. I think they said for next week. And WWE they don't have any shame at this point. They have no shame in setting up title matches for anything. And they don't care how many there are. They don't care what championships they put on free TV or how often. It is just a shameless show from WWE of just, I think, a disrespect of all championships at the expense of what? You can't tell me it's for ratings. There's no evidence to show that title matches spike ratings, especially at this point when you have title matches every single show. No title is exempt. Title matches no longer feel special. Pay-per-views by proxy are starting to be devalued because championship matches used to happen exclusively on pay-per-views, and now they happen on a weekly basis. So that's not even really my problem here. I'm fine with MVP and Bobby Lashley getting that opportunity. It's a fun little matchup for RK Bro, who are also clicking on all cylinders, and I think they are the most over thing on Monday Night Raw right now. When you look at things, I don't know, especially in terms of a babyface, who's more over than RK Bro. I don't know. I don't think the answer I think is nobody. I can't think of another person or team that is more over than RK Bro. And I'm sure Vince laments that fact for a guy that is so single star heavy, and rightfully so. The biggest stars are single stars. This must absolutely burn Vince to his core that the most over thing on his show is a tag team. Think about that if you're Vince McMahon. I know the rest of us don't care, and the rest of us are excited for RK Bro and how long this goes and to see what comes of it. But I'll tell you, I can't remember. Maybe somebody else can. The last time a tag team wrestling was this much a part of a show. So especially if you're watching the Hulu version, which cuts it down even more, right? So it felt like it was even more of the show. If you watch the full 3 hours, of course, you may not feel that same way, but certainly I think it's a refreshing thing to have tag team wrestling as part of the show. Now, we didn't get the full tag team turmoil, which is really just another word for a tag team gauntlet match. And by the way, how do you draw those straws, right? How do you draw those straws where you're the first team out? I mean, that sucks. That sounds like a battle royal. Like you have to pin your opponent to make them submit. You know, like that. I don't know how and how none of the teams griped or talked or complained about the fact of their position or how it was ever determined who comes out first, next, whatever. But those details are all just glossed over. But it's extremely important. If you're the last team, you don't have to face any other team except the one in front of you. All the other teams have been defeated. It's the most advantageous spot of all time. I'd argue in a gauntlet match, it's more of an advantage to be the last person out than it is to be number 30 in the Royal Rumble. Why? Because those teams that you would have had to face have already been defeated. In a Royal Rumble, in theory, you could have all 29 guys still in the ring. So I think it's never, I mean, why they don't explain it or how the order was determined is missing a piece of the puzzle here, and how no one complained or talked about it is it's a little bit of a miss, a loss for me. We're just supposed to accept that every team, oh, here comes the next team and the next team and the next team. Okay, well, tell me how they got those spots, because every team subsequent to the last has an extreme advantage over the previous. It doesn't make sense, but I'm fine with it. Again, I'm only nitpicking at the fact that they didn't explain that, or no one talked about it, or even addressed it, other than the fact that, hey, it is important, and to me it is anyway. But that's why you listen to wrestling podcasts, because you don't get the normal view of the casual fan, right? So, all right. Well, I want to talk about the New Day now. Just when it goes from confusing to just how is this team still existing? The only way that this team shouldn't exist, or the only way we can get Vince to break this team up officially, is to have the crowd turn on it. How are there people still cheering for New Day? Who are these fans? I want to talk to them, and I'm serious. Who is still, and I don't mean that as a pun, who is still cheering for these two guys, and by proxy Big E, who can't let the New Day go, as we see every week with his character cackling with the Money in the Bank briefcase like a child. I just want to know who these people are that support the New Day, and want to know why. Oh, because they're colorful and they're so funny. Okay, colors in and of themselves are not entertaining. They're not fun. They stopped being entertaining, or stopped being funny to me about 5 years ago. And why are we supposed to want to see them be tag team champions again? Somebody explain that to me. What are they, like 85-time champions? No one cares to see them as champions anymore. I just, and they're obnoxious. I'm over kind of too Xavier Woods holding the microphone like a glass of wine. I don't know. That's just his thing. I get it, but every little thing about these two now, especially Kofi Kingston too. Kofi Kingston is just the absolute worst. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I think he's the absolute worst in terms of character. The guy doesn't take a damn thing serious. That's been brought up on air. He turns serious for a quick moment and then goes back to throwing pancakes. Like, I'm here to just have fun. Well, congratulations, Kofi. Enjoy your mediocre career. Have fun. Xavier Woods. I don't know. I think the guy is destined for more. I think Xavier Woods is the star of the team right now. He can go. Roll-up victories, I don't think are the way to do it, because roll-up victories signal a fluke win. I think they do. Roll-up victories are beating your opponent, but not really beating your opponent. It's just kind of a lucky break. And yeah, they got 3 of those in a row. But I don't know. This team needs to dissolve, and dissolve quickly. I just see no use for it other than, the New Day's still together. We're the first team that never broke up, that never feuded with one another. I don't think that just to make that statement at the end of that run for the New Day, if that's your goal, is to be able to say, and that's your claim to fame, that, we never broke up. We're the only, one of the very few, if not the only tag team in the history of the modern era anyway, to not break up. So what? I would say, okay. And... okay. Like, I would stop there and say, well, okay, well, why didn't you break up? Just to be able to say this after how many years? Or did you maybe miss out on a awesome program with, Kofi versus Xavier, or Big E getting involved, making this very interesting, having them all on the same team again, but one of them turns and, getting drama out of it. And then one of them goes on a singles career like Xavier. And you see what you got. I mean, we know what we've got with Kofi. So if the breakup happens, it really would only benefit, I think, Xavier Woods. Kofi Kingston, at this point, we know exactly who he is and what he is. We know what kind of performer he is. He's been there, done that. He was champion for 6 months. So we understand the individual, the wrestler that we have. We know. But with Xavier, it's we don't really know what a singles run with Xavier Woods looks like. And I think that's an interesting place to explore, an interesting road to travel down. And if they do break up, I think it's really behooving of Xavier to stay the hell away from anything referencing the New Day, the colors, anything. I think he's got a good promo in him that he could cut and be vicious and nasty. I think he's got a good heel in him, honestly. I do. Big E, again, as I said, is just forever entangled with New Day. And it's the number one hindering factor for Big E. And I don't know if they'll ever explore something different. Maybe they don't know what to do with him. Maybe he doesn't know what to do with himself. That's been his identity for so long. Perhaps he doesn't even know what the hell to do with himself. Maybe so. So anyway, New Day is just a pimple on the ass of life, as Jerry Lawler would say. They are a blemish on Monday Night Raw, and I don't take any of that back. I mean every single word of it. I know some of you out there are big New Day fans. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I think they have been a long overdue breakup. And yes, they are meant to break up. All right. So with all that said, let's talk about Charlotte and Nia Jax part 2, and we'll get to Alexa. I thought this was another hard-hitting match. It didn't have the same elements as last week. Last week was organically derived. This week was a little more forced. And the only reference to what happened last week was, I think, made by Nia Jax in her promo when she said that, I got a little bit, what did she say? I'm paraphrasing. Something to the effect of, I got a little bit too physical with Charlotte last week and that upset her. Something like that no one's ever been that physical with her before, been able to manhandle her like that, something along those lines. And then Corey Graves ends up bringing out the big guns at the beginning of, I think, Nia Jax's entrance or Charlotte's entrance, and talks about last week how brutal and ugly it was, and it did acknowledge it. I mean, what are they going to say, though? Like, they can't say, yeah, they started punching each other for real last week. I mean, come on. Like, you can't obviously say that. So you have to use language that says it without saying it in the context of still maintaining storyline integrity. So it is a bit of a dancing act, or a high wire act, balancing yourself. And I think Corey Graves did a nice job explaining it to the best that he could, to the extent that he could. And this week, in this match with these two, I think was fine. It is a different style when you're in there with Nia Jax.
You're listening to the WWE Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
I'm sure you've noticed the buzz happening around cryptocurrency. I'm sure some of you are excited about the crypto space, but I'm really excited for the sale that is going on at Crypty.co. Crypty is a crypto-focused website that sells the comfiest hoodies and t-shirts. They support over 20 different cryptos that also have their own hats, stickers, and mugs. Not to mention the best part, they are now accepting cryptocurrency as payment. Head over to Crypty.co and check out their deal. Again, that's Crypty.co, CRYPTEE.co. The Retro Wrestling Reviews podcast is hosted by Gus Edwards and focuses on the best of the territory days of wrestling. This podcast is released twice weekly, with a Sunday show currently reviewing Mid-Atlantic Wrestling and Mid-South Wrestling, beginning with the shows which are on the WWE Network from 1981, so you can watch along with the podcast. Soon, to be joining this rotation will be World Class Championship Wrestling. On the Tuesday podcast, Gus reviews a listener's requested show. These have ranged from the big event in 1986 to SummerSlam 1994, Wrestle War 89 to Beach Blast 92, and many shows in between. That's the Retro Wrestling Reviews podcast, found at all your favorite podcast directories.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
And I think Charlotte is frustrated and a bit confused and a bit out of her element dealing with someone the size of Nia Jax. when you have somebody that size, she can't do the majority of what your opponents can normally do. So when she's in there with, like, you know, Sasha Banks, or she's in there with Nikki ASH, or she's in there with Rhea Ripley, right? Anybody else, really, like anybody else on the roster, nearly, she can't perform the way that she wants to perform, and she has to adjust to the limitations of Nia Jax. And yes, they are simply limitations. They are. Anybody out there say, "Oh, you're body shaming her"? No, look. No. She is who she is. Whatever. She wants to be a large woman, and she is. More power to her. Whatever. I don't care. I think that adds to her, honestly. And I'm not a Nia Jax fan. Don't get me wrong. I'm sticking by that. I do not like Nia Jax on a lot of levels, but I think she's got something to offer to the business. I think that her size and her look are her assets, not her limitations in her mind. But to somebody in the ring with her that's used to being able to perform at a level and a style that Nia can't adhere to, then I'm sure the frustration sets in for Charlotte. And perhaps that's what set it off last week. And it was very physical. This week was very physical. At the same time, it was a little bit forced. You could tell they were trying to recreate a little bit of last week. And fine. They want to do that. Fine. I'm not buying into it. I don't think they're ever going to have a real shoot fight in the ring. I think that was last week. They realized how much attention it got, and then they started to try to recreate it. That's what WWE does, right? When they have a moment, they always try to recreate that moment, no matter what it is. That's their thing too, is WWE. But again, this match was fine. And you know what? I'm fine with seeing a Nia Jax style match. The reason I am is because it's a different feel to a women's match. So as much as I just complain about Nia Jax, I also can see the positive of this, in which not every match needs to feel and look the same. And a lot of times in WWE, men's and women's matches feel the same. Why? Because they all have the same trainer. They all most of them go through NXT. They're all taught the same way by the same trainers to do this the same way, which creates uniformity, which is not always a good thing when you try to make differentiation between performers, because you want to be able to feel like this guy is different than this guy and this girl is different from this girl. But the problem is they've all been taught by the same people. So there's a lot of familiarity with the matches that you see, and the styles and the way that moves are performed, everything. And WWE would say, well, that's an asset. You want everyone to, work the same way so that it's the safest way. It's the best for TV. I would argue, yeah, but here's the big downside. Everyone feels the same. It feels like everyone's cut from the same cloth. That's not a good thing. So when you get to a Nia Jax match, all bets are off, because you can't have Nia Jax doing Hurricane Ranas and, suicide dives, and it's not going to happen, right? So Charlotte needs to adjust to Nia's, quote, limitations. And it's fun because you get to see a slowed down match style, a much slower paced match. I am of the belief, and I'm a fan of slower paced matches, because I think it allows fans and the announcers and everyone at home to absorb what's going on, to understand the story being told, to be able to digest move by move, and thereby every move that's done means more. That's my belief. With so many moves done so fast, the moves themselves become less important, and they become less impactful because so much is happening at once. You're just like, wait, what? And there's very little selling. A slower paced match is like reading a book slower. You absorb more rather than speed reading and going, and I remember like 2 words on that page. So I think a slower paced match is a good thing, even if it's not intentional, and WWE wishes they could have Nia perform at the, quote, normal way to perform. But I think it's an asset because you're paying attention more. And again, the digestion, being able to tell a story it's a better pace for it. I think I've made my point. So there's a big positive for you. For those of you that just say, oh my God, all this guy does is complain. No, I call it like it is. You guys know me by now. I call it like it is. But I also try to see the positive in things. And Nia Jax, for all the downside she's got, and yeah, she has a reputation for hurting people, and she does. I know. Here's the thing: there's a lot of podcasts out there that try to be smarter than other podcasts by saying that I'm tired of hearing people crap on Nia Jax. That's such a simple thing, a simpleton thing to do, and she's not. Look, I mean, I'm not attacking any specific podcast here. I'm going to be more mature than that. I will just say, let's not try to be the smartest guy in the room by rewriting the narrative. The fact is, Nia Jax, her track record shows she is not a safe performer. She's not. She has many instances in which she is directly responsible for the injuries of her opponents. All of them? No. Some of them were not her fault at all. I think even who was with Asuka? Not Io Shirai. I can't remember now. She was in a match with Asuka and her tag team partner, who then left for Japan. It'll come to me. Some of you are screaming it out there. But we had Kairi Sane. There we go. Kairi Sane. She got injured in a match. That was not Nia's fault. Nia just happened to be in the match. So there are instances in which she's not responsible directly for the injury of her opponent that she's working with, but she's had several that are. So my point is, I'm tired of the narrative of people trying to recreate the narrative to try to, I guess, be smart or feel like they are thinking more critically than other people. Sometimes it is as simple as she's just not a safe worker. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I don't think it's carelessness. I think she does care, obviously, about her job. I think it's a mix of a couple things. I think her size does limit her in terms of timing in the ring. And a lot of her opponents are at X speed, and Nia Jax is at Y speed. And when you have two styles that aren't used to working with one another, the timing's going to be off, and therefore there's a higher risk for injury. So I think that's part of it. I know Nia Jax has had some knee injury issues. And perhaps she does need just additional training, period. So there are several reasons why. But anyway, I'm going way off the damn track here. I wanted to just make that point and say something positive about Nia Jax for once. So there's that, and I think that this past week with Shayna Baszler getting herself involved and essentially costing Nia Jax the matchup, you now have officially, hopefully, a split of Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. I hope this is the end, because she cost Nia Jax the women's championship. Oh yeah, by the way, there was a women's championship match. Next week there's a Raw tag team title match. This past week we had a Universal Championship match, and it goes on and on and on. Just too many championship matches. So this should signal the end of this team. We can all just hope and pray that Shayna Baszler is finally a babyface, that for at least temporarily in this program with Nia Jax, that'll culminate at Extreme Rules, and then maybe have another match or two, and then they go their separate ways for good, and Shayna Baszler is back to snapping people's arms, which is what we all want to see. Please. I'm tired of Shayna Baszler in a tag team taking a pinfall every week. So, all right, but next here on the docket is Alexa Bliss, who comes on the screen, and after Charlotte's victory and retention of the Women's Championship, invites Charlotte onto the playground and asks her to come play. And I don't know, obviously Charlotte doesn't agree, or just shoves or dismisses her and says, "I'm not going to play your mind games." And Alexa says, "Fine, we'll bring the playground to you." The lights go out. Alexa Bliss appears in the ring. She has summoned Undertaker powers, and Charlotte turns around, and Alexa Bliss obviously is there, and she says to Charlotte, or Charlotte says to Alexa, "What do you want?" And she points to the Raw Women's Championship. So, based on WWE logic, this would tell you that they are going to be official for Extreme Rules. It wasn't made official on Raw, but it is all but official for Extreme Rules. I just don't see any other way around it. About 4 or 5 months ago, I would have been super excited about this, but since Alexa Bliss has cooled off, it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm interested. This is a matchup that has not yet happened, at least in this iteration of Alexa's character with Charlotte. So I'm interested in this match for sure. And I don't think Alexa Bliss is unrepairable, but I have made comments in the past that say she's at a crossroads, right? I think she is. Alexa Bliss is at a crossroads. Do you double down on this character, or do you slowly start to abandon it? And that's the decision that creative Vince and Alexa Bliss are going to have to make in the coming weeks and months. And I don't know the right answer. I don't. Maybe this character can be saved. Perhaps it can be. Perhaps this character has another side or another dimension or another element that we're not thinking of, that we go, oh, okay, this is now cool again. Maybe. Perhaps. I'm not giving up on it completely, but she still is at a crossroads. That I stand by. So I think it'll be a good match. Alexa Bliss is really good in the ring. It gives Alexa Bliss her biggest program since she has been this character, since The Fiend gave her the mandible claw, so to speak, last year or a year and a half ago now. It feels like forever. And she turned into this character. So this is easily her biggest program since she has adopted that character. Okay. We're going to talk about some things that were not on the Hulu version, and that is Karrion Kross defeats John Morrison via submission with the Kross jacket. So Kross seems to be again on a tear after that first week loss to Jeff Hardy. Kross, this is via CBS Sports, which I always quote. Kross was on Morrison's Moist TV before vowing to end Morrison in something of an impromptu match. Kross then made very quick work of Morrison to get the win. I have a problem with this. Why does it have to be John Morrison, who's trying to get is in a program with The Miz, an irrelevant one of that? And this is a big breakup for a big tag team, whether you love them or hate them. I'm not a fan of them, but they're still a big tag team and one of the more steady ones that have broken up now. We have Karrion Kross come in and make quick work of Morrison. I guess they felt that continuing to build Karrion Kross over keeping John Morrison credible to face The Miz is more important. I don't know. I don't understand this. I don't know how they feel beating John Morrison is elevating Karrion Kross, by the way. They just wanted to get him on TV, find somebody that has the least important storyline, and stick him with him to take a loss. That's what it felt like. So, okay, Rhea Ripley and Nikki ASH defeat Tamina and Natalya via pinfall after Rhea Ripley hit Natalya with Riptide. Okay, so Rhea and Nikki ASH seem to be really gelling as a tag team, and I'm fine with that. I don't want either one near the women's championship. You guys know how I feel about both of them. Nikki is got one of the most just cringeworthy characters in modern history, and we've got Rhea Ripley, who just couldn't find her footing as Raw Women's Champion after WrestleMania, and I think she needs a little bit of time on the quote main roster to find whatever that main roster version of her is, because unfortunately Vince doesn't want the same coming up. He wants to fix it, right? Anything that comes up from NXT, if you've noticed, anyone that comes from NXT, Vince feels like he has to quote unquote fix them. Even if nothing's wrong, he feels that there's just inherently something wrong when people come from NXT that he needs to, they're coming from NXT, we'll make them a real star. And he feels, I think, now again, am I backstage? No, I'm not. But this is my observation from TV. When they take somebody from NXT and they bring them onto the main roster, the characters are not the same. They're not presented the same. Oftentimes their costumes change, their music will change, their promos will change. It very rarely stays the same. And I think Vince feels that if he doesn't put his fingerprints on it, and it's not his baby, right? He wants to feel that he was the influence on the talent coming up, and that he's the reason that they are successful. When in fact, he just needs to leave them the hell alone and realize that what worked in NXT, which by the way is still under the WWE umbrella, will work also on the main roster. But don't tell Vince that. And by the way, he's taking over creative starting September 14th for NXT. Get ready, folks. Oh, Lord. Quick weird plug. Follow me on TikTok at the WWE Podcast if you're interested. I make videos from time to time talking about random things. You can watch me watch returns, and I talked about Brock Lesnar's contract and just random stuff. So follow me on TikTok at the WWE Podcast if you want to. I've only got like 50 followers there because I don't post much, and I'm just getting my feet wet. But nonetheless, it's just a shameless plug. All right, moving on here. Oh, and one last thing I'll say on this tag team. Putting them together is a great idea, Rhea and Nikki, because as you break one tag team up in Nia and Shayna, you usually want to replace it. So if you cut down one tree, you got to plant another. Usually, not always. But I think that these two gel nicely. It's a nice kind of, as much as I can't stand Nikki, I think that you have a nice kind of a balance in their personalities. And Nikki is the annoying little sister who plays dress up, and Rhea Ripley is the goth older sister. I don't know where I'm coming up with that analogy, but that's what it feels like. And fine, you know what? Fine. I think they'll get a run at with the women's tag team championships, and that's cool. I have no problem with these two. It'll be a nice refresh for the women's championships. That notice have they been kind of forgotten lately? Yeah. So I think they're setting them up for a win at Extreme Rules for the women's tag team titles. All right, let's see. The 24/7 championship, Reggie defeats Akira Tozawa via pinfall after hitting a flipping senton in an extremely short match. That's how CBS Sports labeled this, and I did not see it because it wasn't on Hulu. And am I surprised at this description of the match? Nope. The 24/7 championship, I had somebody write in last week. I apologize for names and who wrote in, but talking about how they actually are a fan of it. And I started to kind of come around to the idea that, okay, fine. They need a resident comedy segment. They don't want to have to sometimes think every week of what are we going to do for comedy. This is just built in, and they go, oh, okay, that's right. We don't have to think about and worry and use our brain power this week to think about something comedic that needs to break up the show. We have the 24/7 title, right? So I understand why they do it. And it is just a wacky, zany, mean nothing title other than pure entertainment. So if you love the entertainment-y stuff, this is right up your alley. I think that's what the issue is with me. It's like seafood to me at this point. I hate all kinds of seafood. Anything you throw at me, I don't care. Not even shrimp cocktail, not even haddock. It doesn't taste like fish. Not even, whatever. I don't want to hear it. I've heard it all. Okay, I'm having an argument with myself because it's everything I've heard my entire life. Nothing. I don't like any seafood at all, ever, zero. So, there. But to me, it's that analogy where, fine, you may love seafood, and that's 24/7 championship to you. And no matter how many times you eat it, you're like, yeah, I still like this. For me, it turned to seafood real quick. I mean, it was fun and entertaining at first with all the wacky stuff they did with it, and we knew that it was going to be fun for a while. But it switched from like a nice steak or chicken for me, or a sub. I'm a big sub guy, like turkey and cheese and lettuce, onions. Oh, I'm getting hungry now. To seafood. Like someone just took my plate away of, I don't know, Jersey Mike's, I don't know whatever you guys have where you are, Jersey Mike's sub or a DeBella's sub. And probably none of this rings familiar to you guys, but and they just put a plate of seafood in front of my face, and that's what it feels like. So it's just not my taste. It's not my taste. Its shelf life was long ago for me. Let's see. That covered Monday Night Raw pretty much. The only thing I didn't really comment on Omos, who laid out Bobby Lashley. And yes, we saw the RKO on Bobby Lashley, and we get a WWE Championship match with Bobby Lashley and Randy Orton at Extreme Rules, which again, as I said at the top of the show, logic would dictate that it's going to be Goldberg who then faces Lashley at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. So I think that's the lineup for Bobby the next 2 months. And then maybe we get Brock Lesnar after that during the draft. Maybe that's what happens. Brock Lesnar and Bobby need to have a face-off. And a plug for WWE for free here. Go watch Broken Skull Sessions with Bobby Lashley. It is so it's so insightful on Bobby Lashley. So insightful. The guy is humble, confident, easy going. He seems very approachable. I mean, throughout the entire interview, he was like smiling and laughing at everything he said, but yet it didn't come across as annoying. The guy is a machine. He is an absolute I would not want to come across him in any kind of scenario if I had to fight him. I mean, unless I had a gun, like that's the only thing I'd feel safe from. But this guy seems like a super nice guy. And I'd really recommend you go watch Broken Skull Sessions with Bobby Lashley. It's just awesome. Obviously, Stone Cold, as always, is a great host and asks the right questions and does a great job. But back to this week. Omos lays out Bobby, and it was really fun. That moment with Bobby Lashley and Omos, when they both tagged in, was fun. And even the crowd felt it because it looked like Omos's biggest challenge yet. You have this unstoppable Omos who has yet to even leave his feet, much less take a finisher or even lose a match. And you have Bobby Lashley, who has been the dominant WWE champion now for several months. Many months, actually. And since he won it from The Miz, actually, after, my gosh, I'd have to go back and see the exact date, but it's been a while. He's had a nice run. And you have Omos lay out Bobby Lashley after the match. And yes, we saw what Randy Orton did, RKO, but we got Omos just manhandling Bobby Lashley. And to Bobby's credit, he did hold his own. He was doing the test of strength, and then he did some shoulder blocks in the corner on Omos, and you're thinking, okay, wow, and then he went for the suplex, and I'm like, oh, this could be awesome, right? And if anybody's could pick up Omos, Bobby Lashley is the guy in the roster that could do it. And we didn't get it, but boy, was it fun, right? That was a cool moment. I got to say, looking at the main event there, that was fun. That was fun, and I wouldn't mind revisiting this. Omos, by the way, is quickly turning into a really good heel. With AJ Styles, of course, at his side, I think Omos is doing a really good job at being a heel. He doesn't say much, but he doesn't need to, at least not yet. And no one's even taken him off his feet yet. I was hoping at some point Randy Orton would hit an RKO on him because I think that'd be believable. And then see how Omos sells it. Like, does he get right back up? Does he, no sell it? Like, how does that happen? Or what does he do? So I want to see when Omos is put in a real precarious position, how he is handled and what happens and all that kind of stuff. So they're doing a nice job too, quietly in the background with Omos. I know the focus is on Bobby, the focus is on RK Bro, but Omos right now is slowly becoming a really big player on Monday Night Raw. And I'm loving it. I mean, I know he's very limited in the ring and people say, oh, he didn't put on good matches. You know what? Sometimes it doesn't have to be about putting on 5-star matches. People we're so focused on, give me a great match. What people should be saying is, I want a great story, right? We've lost our deeper connection with wrestling for the more superficial one that WWE has pushed on us over the last several years, which I think is a cover for the lack of ability to tell great stories. Is, well, we can't give you great stories, but we can let the athletes give you a great match. And to me, that's secondary. I think what is lost today is the great deep storylines and storytelling. So the people that don't like Omos, I mean, again, I could be wrong, but I think one of the biggest reasons is he can't wrestle. I would say, according to who? Like, to what standard? If you're expecting him to flip and fly, like Rey Mysterio or whoever, it's not going to happen. Just like Nia Jax. They are different animals, and we need these different animals to break up the same style of match that we've been getting over and over and over. And Omos, yeah, he's a little still rough around the edges, but he's a huge dude that's an attraction that could make you money when he goes face-to-face with, say, Brock Lesnar. Imagine that. Imagine Brock Lesnar going face-to-face with Omos, or Roman Reigns going face-to-face with Omos. Imagine that. So, again, there's still some work to be done, but Omos is making progress every week, and really good progress every week. He's never going to have that 5-star match. We can take that and throw it out the window. I'd rather have a 5-star story than a 5-star match. I really would. Story will always beat out, I think, in terms of dollars and TV ratings, quote, great matches. Everyone's so worried about tearing down the show or tearing down the building and stealing the show and quote unquote making history. You even hear it in the promos today about making history, and we're going to tear the house down. Even Becky Lynch said it in her return. And why is she talking about having a great match? How about you talk about just winning the match? The story will then tell itself. By telling people you're going to tear the house down, that tells me you're more interested in just having a great performance than actually winning the match, which again is a disconnect for me. I don't want to be told by somebody I'm emotionally invested in that I want to make history. History will happen after the fact. Don't tell me beforehand. And I don't know. Whenever they talk about their performances or talk about how they're going to have a 5-star match or have, I don't know, whatever, tear the house down, whatever they want to say, it's such a disconnect for me because that's something that shouldn't be talked about. That's something that maybe the announcers say, right? Or the fans talk about, but it's not the wrestlers themselves. So anyway, way off track as always. But Omos, I'm becoming a big and bigger fan of every week. And him and Bobby Lashley, I think, have at some point a collision course. I mean, I know Bobby's now tied in with Randy, so we'll have to see where Omos and Bobby eventually collide. But there's something there, big time. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So, all right. Well, that, I think, wraps up my Monday Night Raw review. As always, so much fun talking to you guys about the stuff that doesn't matter. Playing in the sandbox of professional wrestling as we all just try to find an escape from our everyday lives and find that talk about stuff that doesn't really matter, right? With all the crazy crap going on in the world, pro wrestling is always there. It's like a best friend, a best friend that never leaves. And so anyway, if you guys haven't checked it out too, by the way, go check out the 2-hour review that Ashley and Mimi did for AEW All Out, talking about, of course, the return of Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, CM Punk's match with Darby Allin, Ruby Riott, now known as Ruby Soho, although don't tell JR that. I think he said Ruby Riott during the show. And of course, Adam Cole. I mean, it was a awesome pay-per-view. And go check out AEW, their review. They did an awesome job. And as well as Anthony DeMarco and myself talking about the what if for the week. And this week it was what if Roman Reigns turned heel in 2015. So one thing I want to say on AEW, and then I'll close it out. I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of them every week. I try to catch as much as I can of it. I did watch the pay-per-view for the most part, not all of it. And I got to say, again, as big of a fan as I am, and I think that WWE is sitting there going, damn, we need to stop releasing people for them to pick up. And they could say, oh, well, we did all the work making them a star. And AEW is just, basically doing the work or benefiting off the work that we did. And I would say to WWE, well, then stop being idiots with the talent you have. That's not a knock on them. That's a knock on you for being boneheads about the way that you sometimes treat talent and release talent or whatever. And the other thing is, eventually AEW is going to have to stop relying on the format of who's going to debut next, right? Who's coming in next? Eventually that format or that style is going to it's going to run its course. Eventually you're going to hit a roadblock, I think, where there's a drying up of those massive stars coming in, and you're going to have to maybe build internal stars and not just rely on the Punks and the Bryans of the world that are big stars in their own right, but they're not spring chickens. So you're going to eventually have to build your own homegrown talent. And it's fun. Don't get me wrong. Seeing these guys debut in another wrestling promotion and hearing their reactions is awesome. And it's a fun moment, and no doubt. But I think what you're going to have to eventually find is AEW can't rely on that formula forever. It is a short-term fun formula that gains a lot of attention very quickly, but the long-term success is going to be dependent on stars being made within, stars being made homegrown. That, I think, is the ultimate way to build and successfully sustain a professional wrestling company, among 100,000 other things. But my point is, eventually this model of watching every show and thinking, oh, who's coming tonight, can't last forever. That can't be what fans are thinking all the time for every show, especially pay-per-views. Eventually it's going to have to be, oh, I can't wait for tonight's matches, and I can't wait to see so-and-so beat so-and-so. And I think there's some of that, but a lot of it in the back of people's minds is, and what makes the internet rounds is, who's debuting in AEW? Blank and blank is, or so-and-so is all elite, right? So I'm not knocking the AEW. They're doing an awesome job. I'm just saying, in the future, this can't be a sustainable formula for success. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. Thank you, as always, everybody. Tomorrow is the mailbag as well as Wrestling Nostalgia. So I'm looking forward to that. And then that'll be it for me for the week until the week in review. So it gives me 4 days on, 3 days off. I record Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then obviously Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you don't hear from me. So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. As always, I'll talk to you next time.